So that's a very good question. And indeed, when we want to go back to the roots of ancient Israelite identity and modern Jewry, it's important for us to understand the historical process in which major events transpire and major historical transformation took place. So we realize that in Scripture, the Israelite people are known as the Hebrew people. So historically speaking, they are the Hebrew people. That's what we know as early as the end of the book of Genesis and the book of Exodus and moving on. So the Hebrew people, the Israelites, are God's chosen nation. So we know that God elected the physical descendants of Abram, Isaac, and Jacob. And we know the stories of the patriarchs are narrated in Genesis chapters 12 through 50. So we know that basically the biblical history of Israel goes back as far as the patriarchs. And then we learn about the formation of the Hebrew people in Egypt. And when we get to the story of Moses, we see that the people have forgotten their spiritual roots. And we learn this from the dialogue between God and Moses at the burning bush. We read in Exodus chapter 3 when Moses asked God, "What is your name? What shall I say to the people of Israel?" And we know that the Lord reveals his divine name to Moses. Interestingly, as we move on in the biblical history, we see that the identity of the Hebrew people, the Israelites, is more and more crystallized. We see that up to the point of entering the promised land under Joshua, we see 12 tribes. We see that the whole nation is now one nation under God, and from now on they are going to enter the promised land and settle down in the land of Canaan. Following that part of history, we learn about the period of the Judges and the United Monarchy, with the first three kings, with Saul, David, and Solomon. Following that, we learn about the division of the kingdoms, and from that point we see a shift in the identity of the Hebrew people. We realize that we learn about the exiles, the exile of the northern kingdom by the Assyrians in the 8th century BC, and then the exile of the southern kingdom of Judea in the 6th century BC. And we see that there are some intermarriages taking place. We see other nationalities landing in the land of Israel. And from there we get the term Jew or Jewish. Okay, the Hebrew equivalent would be Yehudi, and from Judea, Yehuda. So we see that by the time of Jesus Christ, by the New Testament, by the period of the New Testament, we see that the Jewish people are identified by their markers, Jewish identity markers like the male circumcision, keeping the Sabbath, avoiding eating unkosher foods, celebrating the biblical feast, the centrality of the temple in Jerusalem, etc. So in the New Testament, we mostly encounter terms like Jew, Jewish. Okay, so it helps us actually understand the importance of those biblical terms against their historical background. And after the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, we know that there was a great exile of the Jewish people to the neighboring countries of the Middle East, like Asia Minor, Turkey, Greece, Rome, Northern Africa. And we learn about the Jewish people sometimes intermingling with the local Gentile populations. And more questions would need to be answered with respect to Jewish identity as a result of intermarriages that took place in the 1st century and later on in the 2nd century, so moving on. So getting to our days, to the 21st century, we know that the modern state of Israel is the homeland of the Jewish people, with the capital city of Jerusalem. And we know that the Jewish people are scattered around the world, with millions living in Israel, others living in the United States and other countries. So overall, we realize that the Jewish nation is kept by God. It's a miracle, and the modern state of Israel is a prophetic milestone in God's plan of salvation. So it means for us, friends, that we need to go back to Scripture in order to properly identify our identities, whether we are Jewish or Gentiles, and find our identity in the Messiah of Israel, Yeshua from Nazareth.